Finally! I finally made it past the famous Shogun Assassination Arc from Gintama, and yeah, I loved it. Well, I've already watched Farewell Shinsengumi, and I do think the title of the best shonen arc goes to it as well, but for today, let's talk about this arc as this really shocked me. I'd been expecting some big stuff as I was hearing from other people about how amazing this arc was, and my expectations were met perfectly well. This is just not the best arc in Gintama, but the best shonen arc in general. This of course is my opinion though. The video will of course have spoilers for the arc and Gintama itself, so proceed with caution. Before I do get into this video, subscribe if you haven't, hit the like button, turn on bell notifications, and follow my Twitter down below. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Fighting
Now the first thing I'm going to be discussing is the overall general plot of this amazing arc and how I felt about it. The Shogun Assassination Arc is about, well, like the title of the arc says, it's about committing to the assassination of the Shogun. The Oddjobs and the main Shinsengumi members join in to protect the Shogun from potential killers, with the main opponents being Takasugi's unit and Kamui's as well. Knowing this, you already realize that there's gonna be a tough battle coming up and a pretty personal one as well, with Takasugi being Gintoki's old teammate and Kamui being Kagura's brother. There's also a third unit of enemies that come by the end of the arc, and they're probably the ones I hate the most. The characters and the team-ups in this arc were amazing as well. From the ninjas getting in on some action as they were the old protectors of the Shogun, to Oddjobs and the Shinsengumi teaming up to be actual Yato clan members, which is surprising as the Yatos are undoubtedly the most strongest race in Gintama. Also, since I was talking about the ninjas before, Zenzou became an amazing character in this arc, and I'll have a section talking about him later cause he really surprised me by how good he was. The fights are another thing that this arc excelled at, showing how deadly the opponents were and how our main characters still didn't give in to the weight of the huge force that they were up against. Each fight served a big purpose to not just the story's progression, but to the characters themselves, diving into the past of their characters while we were watching the fights, only increasing our desire for them to live. It's really amazing how a story makes us feel for each and every one of the characters, even though some of them barely got any screen time before the arc. That's the thing Gintama is good at, and it consistently shows this skill in every arc, even the comedy ones as well. The overall twists, emotional moments, and the amount of shock value this arc gave us in every episode gave it such an intense setting as we wouldn't even know what would happen next after watching each scene. It was unpredictable, and seeing each twist surprised me each time. Zenzou cutting off the head of the fake Shogun, Takasugi switching up on the ninja clan, and just seeing Gintoki's whole backstory blew me away. I'll get to that later in the video though, as I'm gonna be talking about at least 3 characters that were the best in the entire arc. So let's get into these 3 characters. Hattori Zenzou, an old friend of the Shogun, Shige and Sachan, a fan of Shonen Jump and got into fights with Gintoki so he could have the last one that was on stock. And also, he's the one who blew my expectations away in this arc and came into my top 10 characters of Gintama. Zenzou really surprised me as he was someone who didn't really show up frequently in the series, and whenever we saw him, he was usually a comedic character. The Red Spider arc had shown us who he kind of was in a more serious sense, and he was actually pretty cool in that arc as well. But the Shogun Assassination arc is where it fully made Zenzou a great character. For the first majority of the arc, he was the MVP. He protected the Shogun in ways that would make someone hunted by the entire country, but he did it for a friend. His resolve is amazing, and him being able to kill one of the fake doubles of the Shogun with no hesitation only increases to how good he was at his job as the protector of the Shogun. Also, he was not even afraid of Takasugi or the rest of the Kaihetai, which was crazy. This man took on a whole lot of opponents by himself and was ready to fight to the death. He literally abandoned everything just to save not just the Shogun but his friend, so that really deserves a big amount of respect for this amazing ninja. Also, the way the anime incorporated his backstory within the fight got me feeling chills. Each time it kept coming back to the days of when Zenzou, Sachan and Shige were training together. It really made us watchers desperately not want to see Zenzou die in the fight, even if that was what he was planning to do in the first place, ever since hearing about the Shogun assassination plot. This arc did a really great job in opening our eyes to the ninjas of the world and their beliefs. and making one specific one an amazing character who felt like the hero in the majority of the arc. The second person out of the three I was planning to talk about is someone who took some time to show himself more out there in the episodes, Takasugi Shunsuke. This guy became an amazing character in a mere 2 episodes. He was already an interesting and menacing character who had the presence of someone ready to cause a big load of trouble, but then finally finding out who Takasugi really was in this arc blew me away. We finally got to dive into the backstory of the students of Shouyou, and we got to see Takasugi's perspective first. Takasugi was someone who had no certain ambition. Well, he just had no fuel to start up his life or just a code to follow like his father and everyone else did. Being like this, he acted as if he didn't care about the so-called Bushido the samurai followed, and acted rebelliously, getting into fights and scuffles, but this would then lead to him meeting both Gintoki and Yoshida Shouyou. Upon this meeting, he would challenge Gintoki, and after losing multiple times, he would slowly acquire a goal of becoming stronger and strong enough to beat Gintoki, and then next, Shouyou. He only went into the school to work to beat that goal, but he would then eventually become fond of the place, and fit into the school perfectly as he generally enjoyed his time there. His life at the school would come to an abrupt end though, with the Tenchuin raiding the place, capturing Shouyou, and leaving the kids at the school without a teacher. Years later, Takasugi would go to war with Gintoki and Katsura to save Shouyou and return him home, but like always, the Tenchuin has to mess everything up for the students of Shouyou and make Gintoki choose to kill Shouyou or both Takasugi and Katsura. Gintoki chooses Shouyou, which sends Takasugi down a spiral of endless rage and hatred. As the years go by after the war, Takasugi becomes self-destructive whilst wanting to cause destruction to everything else in the land as well. The reason for this is because he couldn't save Shouyou with his own strength, making his rage and hatred stem from his weak self. In the Shogun Assassination Arc, we saw how much rage he had when he went up against Gintoki. Every time he punched or slashed swords with him, it looked like he was hurting inside, which was actually true when we saw his backstory within the fight. He would have done the same thing Gintoki did if he was put in that position, which is the reason he hates Gintoki, which comes back to hating himself as well. Gintoki is like an alter ego for him, which makes it so easy for him to point his sword at an old friend. But by the end of the fight, he slowly started to come to terms with his self-hatred, coming to terms with his alter ego being Gintoki. Takasugi became a top 3 character of Gintama in a matter of 2 episodes, which shows how good the writing in Gintama is. His dynamic with Gintoki is just top tier, and the impact he had on the arc only increases the greatness of it. Now the last person I'm going to be talking about which was amazing in this arc is none other than the main character himself, Sakata Gintoki. Gintoki is amazing like always in this arc, but this is where we finally got to see Gintoki and Takasugi go up against each other. Ever since Takasugi was introduced in episode 17, we already knew he was the one rival every protagonist usually has, so we knew the fight was gonna happen one way or another, and finally seeing it happen at episode 304 and 305 made the wait finally pay off. His resolve to kill Takasugi was set in stone in the arc, and we were ready to see how he would carry it out. What we were not ready for was the amount of flashbacks that came with the fight that revealed everything that was hidden. The flashbacks were great. We got to see how both Takasugi and Gintoki met, who exactly was Shouyou, and how he died. We also got to see the shocking moment that was Gintoki putting an end to Shouyou's life, which fueled Takasugi's rage. But why did Gintoki decide to protect Katsura and Takasugi? The reason for this was because he cared too much about Shouyou. With him caring this much, he knew what Shouyou held dear all too well, which were his students. So Gintoki couldn't have the resolve of cutting down the people Shouyou cared about a lot, which was the reason why he just couldn't take either Katsura or Takasugi's lives. But killing his teacher hurt him the most out of the 3, and even Takasugi knew that, which made him angry on why Gintoki never tried to avenge his teacher in all of these years. Gintoki didn't walk the path of vengeance after that fateful day, but eventually built back his soul that he lost. Everyone that he met helped him do so, Otose, Oddjobs, and everyone he met in Edo that helped him out a few times. This revived Gintoki, and it's amazing when you look back at Gintama and you realize all these events Gintoki goes through, either they're filled with comedy or serious stuff, Gintoki was regaining himself again. It's just amazing seeing the protagonist build himself this way and not break himself like other protagonists usually do in their stories. It's a bit refreshing to be honest, and I think that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love his character. Now the ending of this arc was totally unexpected but understandable for plot development. It's sad how we see Shige literally trust his friend in the end, but that trust betrays him with a poison needle striking him in the palm of his hands. Also, him choosing his place to die afterwards was nice to see, but the overall ending was just sad. Shige really didn't deserve any of this, and yeah, I really hate the new Shogun, especially how he was in the Farewell Shinsengumi arc, but I'll talk about that arc another day. So that's where I'm gonna end off the video for today. Hopefully you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure to comment some more video ideas for next time. But like always, subscribe if you haven't, hit the like button, turn on bell notifications, and follow my Twitter down below. It's been Endless Requiem, peace.